How does a work boot bought on Temu stack up against the support features that we look for in a good work boot? Hey guys, it's Kent here and I'm the podiatrist from DocPods and Ergonx. And today we're having a look at a cheap online work boot that we bought on Temu and just how it stacks up against our usual tests that we do in the podiatry clinic. So if you have a look at it, it actually looks like a legit work boot. Doesn't look too bad at all. It's very, very light. And that is probably the only good thing I'm going to say about this work boot now. So if we compare it to a fully featured work boot, it's actually quite a bit heavier than the Temu boot, but that'll become apparent why in a few minutes. So the features that we look for is where does it bend, and this thing bends all over your foot. It's really horribly unsupportive. It won't really support your feet much at all. So it'll strain everything through the midfoot. So you're more likely to get heel pain, heel spurs, and plantar fasciitis if we don't support these areas of the feet. When we twist it, we can see that I can actually just wring this boot right out. Now this is a horrible feature if we're going to be in our work boots all day, every day. We actually need our boots not to twist too much. So this one fails in that respect as well. The heel counter is very, very soft, so we're going to get no support by gripping the heel on that one. So it fails again on that respect. It's got a slippery outsole, so it's not a slip resistant outsole. So lots of workplace accidents are caused by slips and falls. So most, about 30% of the oil injuries in fast food are preceded by a slip. So if you're working in fast food or anywhere there's a chance of a slip into something dangerous, we need to have a slip resistant outsole. It doesn't really have a midsole and an outsole. It's got the one combination here. It's the single density. It looks like a polyurethane boot, and the insole of the work boot is really quite cheap, and it's just a cheap foam, much like you would have in any sort of really cheap, just very, very cheap foam that will compression set bottom out really quite quickly. The eyelets are, of course, steel. So they'll set off the metal detectors in the airport, and this toe cap is steel, and it's a very, very low toe cap. So it looks like this boot's been designed of almost a fashion, like that Timberland looking boot, and then they'll put a steel cap inside that, so that'll really encroach on the space inside for your toes. And we can actually feel from the inside, there's about a 4 to 5 mil drop where that toe cap is. So you can imagine if you're putting your toes in this boot, it's going to be really quite narrow across there. Even though it's a nice looking boot, I'll give you that. The leathers and everything are really quite cheap. It's a fake leather, and it's very, very thin. If we hold that up to the camera, you can see how thin that leather is, and I'm assuming that's the leather used all through here. But you can feel it's really, really quite flimsy. There's very little in the way of padding in the inside of the boot. So we look from about here down, and there's just nothing underneath that little cuff around your heel. Overall, it's a very, very, very cheap boot. It's very light, and that's probably the only benefit it's got to it. It will. We've asked a few of the podiatrists around the clinic how long they would expect this outsole to last, and it's come back from anywhere from 2 weeks to about 4 weeks. So we're going to do a lot more with this boot. We're going to cut it up, put it on the treadmill, see how it supports your feet, and just if there's any good features at all to this one. So stay tuned. If you've got any questions or anything you want to see us do to this boot, let us know, and we'll be able to do some testing for you. But look, you do really get what you pay for in a work boot. So look for a more full-featured work boots. Of course, like our Ergonx Elements work boots, they've got a lot more features than this. It'll add a little bit to the weight, but it does support and cushion your feet more, and you're less likely to get aches and pains in your feet. So try and steer clear of the really, really cheap work boots, and hang around and subscribe, and we'll do more testing on this work boot to show you exactly why we don't like it.